Hello, fellow Sopranos fans. So, as many of you guys know, in 2020 a podcast was started called Talking Sopranos, hosted by Sopranos actors Michael Imperioli and Steve Schirripa, where they took a look at each and every episode of The Sopranos, inviting guests onto the show, people who starred in the series, who worked on it, or were just fans of it. I wasn't the biggest fan of the podcast, as I talked about in a previous video. I appreciated it, the idea was great, but it had some glaring issues. Mainly that Schirripa was a poor host who didn't seem to have much of an interest in the show on a deeper level, and derailed much of the interviews the duo did, which were such great opportunities to get some good stories from the making of The Sopranos onto the podcast. Imperioli was interesting to listen to, but mid-analysis he would have his thoughts trampled on by Schirripa talking about his penis or hating Robert De Niro, and eventually Imperioli seemed mentally checked out. They should have gone for a warm and convivial host like John Ventimiglia. People complained and they ended up disabling the YouTube comment section too. Anyway, on the final episode of the podcast, the duo got on David Chase, the creator of The Sopranos, and in one segment they asked him some of the most asked questions about the show, and Chase answered them. Sure, you had Schirripa as usual talking absolute rubbish like a theory about mayonnaise, but in general it felt like a huge moment. The man who created The Sopranos brazenly answering the show's biggest mysteries, and I was pretty shocked that the Talking Sopranos team didn't take this short segment from this 2-hour plus podcast episode and create a separate, shorter video. So I ended up doing it myself, cutting out the segments and uploading it as a video, and it was really cool seeing everyone in the comment section discuss Chase's answers. However, something interesting happened. I made a 30-second video called David Chase Ends Steve Schirripa's Career. It was just a little joke video where I took a segment of the podcast where Schirripa tells Chase that he won't be having a funeral when he goes, and Chase saying that's a relief because he wasn't going to go anyway. And then I added the wasted screen and sound effect from the GTA games. Harmless little fun, but I got hit with a copyright strike directly from Talking Sopranos a while after it came out. And copyright strikes are huge because they sit on your channel for 6 months, and if you get 3 in a row, your channel disappears. I was mystified that I got a strike for a 30-second video that I edited to create something different, which falls under fair use, meaning it shouldn't have been hit with a copyright strike. And yet a 7-minute plus video where I just copy and pasted from the podcast, which isn't really fair use, wasn't hit with one. And I genuinely believe, due to his personality among other things, that Schirripa saw the video, or it was put to him and he had a hissy fit over it and got the Talking Sopranos team to hit it with a strike. Either that or Schirripa wasn't happy with how I grilled his hosting abilities in my review of Talking Sopranos. Anyway, to avoid getting another one, I preemptively deleted the Chase video in case that got hit with one as well, but I always plan to revisit it somehow, because the creator of the show spilling the beans on Sopranos mysteries is obviously something Sopranos fans should know about, and so here we are. I'll post Chase's audio only, so hopefully this won't get flagged with a copyright strike. So the first question was basically about Livia Soprano, about what the plans were for The Sopranos Season 3 if Nancy Marchant had lived. And Chase said,
there was a plan. She died in the middle of season 2, didn't she? I don't know. I really don't know.
Yes.
My plan was, in fact, it was starting. It had something to do with airline tickets that Tony had given her to go to Florida. And they were, of course, stolen, and she got busted with those tickets. And so she was going to testify against him in court. They were going to get him on a RICO, and his mother was going to testify against him. And that was going to keep that horrible relationship going. That they were, speaking to each other, but not, the way it was. But then she just became too ill to do that.
Those were the tickets that came in the bust out, the Davey Scatino bust out.
I think you remember more about it than I do. I mean, I remember there was airline tickets and something else.
He was then asked, was there any character who Chase felt was killed off too soon and he regretted killing?
Is there anybody that I missed? Well, no. Well, I could say, yeah, Pussy, but it wasn't too, it was too soon because we all loved the guy and we loved the actor also. But it was, it made for a great story. And that's, what could I say? Anybody else that I regretted killing off? I don't think so. I can't think of anybody. It probably was, right?
Did Tony's therapy actually help him?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I don't know that I could say how. I think maybe his therapy left him more open to some of the, I hesitate to use this word, but I will, to some of the Buddhism that started to pop up in the last year or so. After he had that vision of being in California, I think his therapy kind of prepared him for that, or like it made him more open to that kind of thing. And a lot of people, a lot of fans say, or critics say, it got darker. He got darker and darker and darker. Everybody seems to feel that way, except I don't.
You don't feel that way?
No.
Do you feel he got the opposite? Like he got lighter, or it's just this is kind of who he was?
He didn't get lighter. He may have gotten more troubled.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he was more of an asshole than he'd ever been. I don't think he was, the first season, he was younger and it was the first season. But I just think he got more interesting.
Well, that's for sure.
Now, I can't say this positively. Maybe it was something we were doing that people said it was darker. Well, you know what? We did a lot of talk about terrorism.
Yeah.
Not a lot. I mean, it wasn't about that, but we did a lot of talk about terrorism and politics. But also, I think Jim was getting darker.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, he was, he was kind of burnt out. Like, I think, you didn't see it in his performance, but I'm just saying in general, after, the last 9 episodes took 9 months, I think Jim just had it, which is why I think for a couple of years, he just basically didn't do anything.
Well, but his face was darker, his expression. His resting expression was, dark. And there was stuff going on there, as we all know.
Do you agree with the report that Melfi read, where criminals use therapy to make themselves better criminals?
I don't believe that therapy made him a better criminal.
You don't believe that?
No. How would that happen? I don't think so. But I guess I would have to go back to the foundations of the show. And I believe that every character, maybe there was a few that were not children, not minors. Every adult character on that show had made a deal with the devil. Starting with him, and you could kind of call him the devil if you wanted to, but starting with him and including Melfi. What happened was I was living in Santa Monica when I was writing the show, and my neighbor down the street was a psychiatrist, and he was walking his huge dog. I don't know what it was, and I stopped him and I said, "Listen, I'm writing this pilot, and if a gangster came to you in therapy, would you go to the police about what he told you, or would that fall under the whatever you call it,
client privilege?
Client privilege, yeah." And he said, "Well, only if the patient said to me someone was going to be hurt, then I would go to the police, technically." And when he said that technically thing, I thought, you piece of shit. um, really. Okay. I know. See, that's to me, as always, I had a couple of really great therapists, but the last one was magnificent. Hank Melfi was based on her. But one of my gripes about psychotherapy was that there was always this exculpatory conversation. The patient never did anything wrong. They never say to the patient, what's the matter with you? How could you say that to your wife or whatever? Well, you have to look back and think about how your father talked to your mother, there was never any accounting. And I always felt that way, including about myself. And so when she took Tony on, I kept thinking, I think we used that dialogue. He said, what if I tell you something that is like bad? She said, well, if you tell me somebody's going to be hurt, I have to go to the police. Technically. So that was her deal with the devil.
But I did like what Melfi, because at times Melfi really prodded him. She didn't just sit back. She was at times aggressive, very aggressive.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
And I like that. I like that about her.
That's true. I like that about her. We all did. And Lorraine did a great job of that.
Yeah.
However, the basic situation was that she was treating a murderer. Now, okay. So if she was a lawyer and he was on trial, she'd have to defend him, even if she thought he was a murderer. So that's the way it is. But that's some kind of a deal with the devil as far as human relations are concerned.
Did Ralph kill the horse, Pyomai?
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
I thought so. I
think so. He did. Tony had it right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when he was beating up on Ralphie for killing Pyomai, it was really about that girl that he killed.
Tracy.
Yeah.
What does Tony get when he's in the desert and he says, I get it?
Well, you know.
I don't know if I know.
What he was talking about specifically was he got it that Christopher was a negative influence on his run of luck or his run in life. And now that he was gone, he started winning at the tables.
All right.
And when he took peyote, he saw that kid could have done him in, that he waited too long. He saw many things, and some of it was not related to Christopher at all. It was that he got it, you know.
The bigger picture, whatever that is, related to Hal Holbrook in the hospital. He kind of puts that together. I mean, I was reminded of that scene when Hal Holbrook's character, I forget, Dr. Schwinn was his name, talks about kind of basically the Buddhist theory of shunyata, like interdependence, interconnectedness, non-duality, all those things. That's basically what he's talking about.
Is that about the butterfly? Wait.
No, it's a soup of molecules, and it's only an illusion that we're separate entities and things like that. And really, the true nature of reality is non-dual on a universal level, and that kind of reminded me of that. That's what I was
absolutely, saying. Yeah. That's what anything good that one realizes from mushrooms or LSD or anything like that is in that vein, and that's why when it goes too far, it's called the dissolution of the ego. You know, you just you're gone as you.
Right.
And that's why people have bad experiences too.
Was Phil Leotardo gay?
Yeah.
That's intentional, right? Some of those
illusions were intentional.
So his like revulsion and the kind of vehemence he has towards Vito comes from that self-hatred.
Yeah, but I don't think Phil was reflective enough to know what was going on inside him.
No, I mean subconsciously, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. He wasn't reflective enough. No.
You know what really got us was when Doc sings "The Girl from Ipanema" to him. Right? What was his name? Doc
Santoro. When Phil comes out of the hospital, and there's a party for him, and Doc Santoro sings "Tall and Tan," and when he sees Phil, he starts singing "The Girl from Ipanema," which I thought was one of the funniest things in the whole show.
I don't even recall that.
Yeah. And, yes, it was obvious when he came out of the closet in the hotel room, but that really tipped us off when he sang.
Yeah, when he shuts off the bodybuilding competition, that's...
What's going to happen to AJ after the show?
He wasn't going to be Tony.
See, he's not going to be Tony.
No, he's not going to be Tony. He's probably not going to be a movie producer either, but although that's kind of evil in itself. Here's what I was going to say. Whenever I read stuff about the show, mostly fan stuff, if I read it, they hate AJ. Everybody hates AJ.
Oh. And
I don't understand it. He was I know he was a fuck up, and he was, he was a teenager. Yeah. I never got it. And, the thing when they beat up that African kid and he stood back from that and you could see how repulsed he was, that was a very important moment. Now, he should have done what? Gone in there and saved the African kid? I don't know. But I just never, I thought Robert was so good at it.
So good.
Starting from the beginning, and I just never understood that. I just thought he's a troubled kid, like half of the teenagers in America, or more.
I think he was troubled. I think he was also a little bit of a con man.
Spoiled,
very spoiled.
Yeah. Definitely spoiled. No doubt
about it. So was Meadow early on, and then she kind of grew out of it and became, a wonderful woman, as we see her growing. AJ was still a comment even in the final episode. So he trades in the SUV for a BMW. You know what I mean? Right.
But justifies it.
Well, wait a second. His parents bought him that BMW. He didn't trade anything in.
Right.
Absolutely.
Tony got that BMW somewhere. Yeah.
And it does 23 on the highway, like he said. He's kind of okay with it.
Was Janice more evil than Livia? She was certainly her mother's daughter.
Yeah, that's for sure. And her father's daughter, too. But we didn't see her father, really, much. Was she more evil than Livia? I guess I'd have to say yes, because Livia, came from a time and a part of New Jersey that, was not very enlightened. They weren't not a lot of money, but they were working class people. And so there's a lot Livia didn't know. Janice had every opportunity. She was a Hindu. She was all this stuff. She'd been all around the world, and she still was very corrupt. Yeah.
So Livia, you feel it was just kind of, I don't want to say ignorance, but just she was.
No. She was, bad. Livia had a criminal mind in a certain way. Now, she was based on my mother. I've always said that. And my mother, her whole thing was the tyranny of the weak, right? That somebody was always picking on her or didn't understand her or things were not right. And Olivia had all that. But I always felt, had my mother been a male, she would have been a criminal.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow.
But my mother, if she was based on my mother had to quit high school after her freshman year. She went to work for I don't know, prudential or something. She didn't come from a happy household, so all that contributed to living.
Trickled down, yeah.
If Tony died, who takes over the family?
I mean, it was kind of scarce. There wasn't many people left.
Yeah, you'd have to ask HBO because who are they going to pay? There wasn't anybody left.
No.
That's really true. I mean, I saw that and I kind of thought, oh my God. Do we believe that? Well, where was the family really? Do we believe that Paulie could have run that?
No.
He didn't really want to, right? He didn't
want to. It doesn't mean he wouldn't have done it, but could he have done it?
I don't know mentally if he could have done it. You know what? You know what's a great? We were talking earlier about the shots in the show. When Tony talks to him about outside the pork store, and he's got the sun visor, and Tony walks away, and that shot with Paulie with the sun visor and the cat comes into frame, just lays there. It's just a beautiful shot.
Did Tony regret killing Christopher?
It's hard for me to think of Tony of not having. Well, he regretted everything, so it's hard for me to think of Tony and not having a moment, or certainly not in that episode. He didn't. I bet it came across his consciousness, yeah, but not much, because well, his problems and the writer's problems are two different things. But because Michael was so good and the character was so interesting, in real life, Tony would have whacked him much earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, after his second relapse or something, that would be it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But we didn't want to do that. We couldn't. Well, I don't mean we could have, but just didn't want to do it. But I see, I feel that if Tony felt remorse about that, even for a second, he would also think, after all I did for that little shit, that he betrayed me in a sense, and he would have betrayed me if push came to shove.
Oh yeah,
he would definitely would have dined me to the feds.
Is it true that the original ending was that Junior shoots Tony?
No.
We shot him, I think, didn't we? That was the throw, because there were people. Somebody within the organization was giving out information to the press. And even if that wasn't the case, they were always trying to find out what we were doing. So we would do that occasionally, to shoot something that we weren't going to use.
But there wasn't, there's rumors out there, which I don't believe to be true. I talked to Terry about it a while back, that people were saying that there was numerous endings filmed. Is that true? No. There's one ending. What we saw.
I think, was there a fake ending?
No, I think what I do think what happened, David, I think when Junior did shoot Tony in season 6.
Yeah.
I believe you shot one where it was Phil who shot him. There was a fake one there. Some fake.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That was to throw people off.
Yeah.
Because we knew that he and Phil were not friends, right? That Phil had a motive for killing him. So we thought, well, that'll make sense to the press or to the fans or whatever. So they won't tumble to what we're really doing.
And the crew didn't get the script.
What?
The crew didn't get the script with the ending, right? Didn't they? The last scene was Tony raking the leaves. Is that?
No, the last scene, was it? I
don't know. That's what I heard.
I think the last scene, we did a scene where he and Silvio went into the bada bang, or I don't recall now. We did do some dummy scenes to throw suspicion on.
Was AJ's girlfriend a plant from New York?
So when she was at home at the Soprano house when they were sitting on the couch eating potato chips or whatever, and Carmela says, "We're going to Holston's tonight." She knew about it. Have you heard that?
No, I haven't.
You don't heard that? No, it's a big one.
Really?
That she was involved in. Yeah.
Well, why would she do that? I mean, what's her connection to Phil's people?
Listen, I don't know. I didn't make it up. It's out there, pretty heavy, you know?
Yeah, I don't know about that.
So on this one, Chase did an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, and it was reported that he basically confirmed that Tony died. Did he take issue with the way he was quoted?
Well, I did have an issue because I read the thing, I don't know how many times. I never said what happened to Tony. I said what the two alternates were that I was going to do, what I had discarded years before. I don't know. I really don't know where that comes from. I mean, this whole thing is so childish in a way but I read that thing. I thought, where does it say that I said Tony was dead? Where does it say anything like that? I said that there was a plan that he was going to go into New York and be killed. Okay. Didn't do that.
Yeah.
It was a plan. I don't know. I forget what else. But I talked about things that were rejected.
Mm-hmm. And he took it as that. Well, clickbait.
No, he didn't. No, you know what? That whole thing was done. He asked me to do that. That guy Scott asked me to do what do they call it? A master class or something at Chapman University Film School. So I was addressing a bunch of a pretty large group of young people, and I was he was prodding me. He was asking me questions like you are. And I was answering and talking to them hopefully about the realities of Hollywood and stuff like that. And that's how that came about. That was not a one-on-one interview.
Oh, okay. So you were in front of a big group.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
I would never say it anyway, but of course not in front of a big group.
Are there any plans for another Sopranos movie?
Any other Soprano movies? You know, I said once before there weren't going to be any more. And then, you know, when that movie was planned and was shot, there was no plan to have it say a Sopranos movie. They put that on there.
Gotcha.
And I was so tired of arguing with them. I said, it was really more about Dickie Moltisanti. It wasn't, you know, in my mind. Anyway, I don't think so. I don't think so. They are allegedly interested in doing a limited series, 6 episodes to go from the end of the movie to the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm. That's a long span of time, though.
Right, but I think what they want, or people want, is Tony gets made, Tony's first hit, you know.
Yeah. That's not easy.
Huh?
That's not easy.
To do that?
No.
Well, I just mean, it is easy.
It's not easy to do it well.
So there you have it. What do you make of Chase's answers? Stuff like Ralph killing the horse and Phil being gay? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.
David, a week is barbaric to me. You got your friend, your relative, they're sitting, laying in a fucking box. It's like a cocktail party. People aren't even paying attention. They're laughing and joking. It's just horrible. Horrible. Which is why I'm not having a funeral. And Michael's going to host.
That's a relief because I wasn't going to come.
Yeah.